Hey there, Blender artists, nerds, and geniuses. It's Paul again. Yay. Yay! Anyhow, I'm going to try to make the missile launcher again. This is the second time. If you've already seen the other video, I kind of failed at the end trying to get information to pass through, so I'm going to try the whole process again. And I'm just going to open my basic missile launcher blend file, but this is pretty much right at the beginning if I remember. Before it had all the rigs and stuff applied, so I'm going to try doing this again. What we see here is a box, and inside the box is a missile launcher. So instead of the box, it could be like a vehicle or something, like if you have a vehicle with hidden weapons, and instead of the missile launcher you could just have like a gun or something, or maybe it could be a hidden compartment where a camera pops out, but the same idea applies. Just the orientations are different. If you had a camera, like it might be on a ceiling or something. But it's just like a hidden armature where it opens up and out pops the missile and it aims at a target. So, as I can see, I don't have the target from last time, so let's add a target. And it's going to be an empty. And I'm going to call this one missile target. And that's what the missile will eventually point at when it's done. And I almost had this rig working, but I screwed up something and I figured it out on my own, even though I asked in the forums. Is that I needed to use a bone to do the last part of the rig and not a second empty or something. But I can still use an empty to control the first half of the rig, which is alright. So I think I answered my own question. And funnily enough, my video where I failed at the end has 2 thumbs up. So I must have been on the right track for the most part, but alright, so what we need to do is create an action, but before we create an action we gotta create the whole rig. And to do that, I'm going to switch to X-ray view, which is the Z key. And in this case you hit the Z key without doing any other action, because normally that's constrained to Z axis, but by itself without anything else it's also the wireframe mode. So if you're new at this, that helps. Should probably turn on mouse actions. Do I have that? I think it's a plugin, right? So if I go File, Preferences. So other people using this in their tutorial. Oh, where is the add-ons? And I don't know if it's development or what. That's trying to think of what it would be called. It's the one that shows the mouse. Navigation. Screencast keys. There we go. Alright, that's the one. And I guess I'll turn that on. And let's see. Do I get screencast keys yet? Yeah, you have to run scripts. Oh. Well, I'm not seeing the screencast keys. I don't know. Maybe it'll start showing up. Well, I clicked the box to turn them on. User preferences, screencast keys. And I don't know if you have to run the thing or if there's a view panel you gotta turn them on. Ah, here we go. Start display. That helps. Alright, so see now I got screencast keys. So you can see what I'm doing when I don't say it all the time. And that saves me the trouble. Yes, I've seen it in other videos. So, where we go wireframe view, like so. And I'm going to hide the box again. And we'll start with our bones down here, I believe. Where is I? Yeah, I'm bad at losing my train of thought. I'm terrible, right? So, and we gotta add our bones. So let's do that. This bone is the root, so I'm just gonna call that root. thinking this time I'm not going to do anything with the root, but I'm going to attach it to the box instead, so it should move. Instead of having the box move with the armature moves with the box. I'm going to try something a little different here. So I'm going to do it like that. And now we're going to go to edit mode on the bone, but we're going to add another bone. That's going to start our base of the object. However, I will have it parented, just not connected. So let's do it that way. Alright. So this bone we'll call root. And this one will be base pivot. And I'll go into the arm bones and launch rails. So you'll have bones for each door on the box. I think that'll be good. So turn off the launcher box. Get out of here. And we want that. We want to go to edit mode on that so we can get the center roots, vertex at center. So hit Control Tab and then to vertex. Hit A to deselect all. And right there. And Shift S, which will be selection to cursor, or no, it's cursor to selected, because I want my cursor. Tab out of that, and go back to this bone here, go to editing that bone, and alright, Shift S to snap. And I'm going to do the same with this bone here for now. Yeah, I think I'll do the same. Because what I want to do is move that straight up on the Z-axis. Like so. That should be good, I think. So. I gotta switch modes so I can switch selections here. Go to edit mode again, hit A for all, and I'm in vertex selection. So select both of those, and I'm holding shift when I select that second one. Add cursor to selected. Tab out of there, that works too. Tab into this, and there. So all I'll do is bring my bone into alignment. Now from this bone I extrude on the y-axis. Just have to get close. You notice these armatures, the way I rig with armatures is with mechanical models you don't really have to worry about weighting, because the whole piece that goes to the bone gets weighted 100%, and the way you parent it will automatically do that. It makes it easy, actually. But we'll get there, Still doing this rig. So, tab out of that. I don't want to select that, but I do want to select this again, and tab back into it. Hit A to deselect those, and now I want the center vertices at this end. And even though this other stuff shows, it's not part of the selection. So when I do that, it won't select them, just so you know. But they're there for position reference, so it's easy to work in wireframe mode this way. And I believe, is my cursor there yet? No, not yet. So I gotta do cursor to selected. Bam. In this case, it always center weights the selection. I think it has something to do with that too. This pivot point, I believe, affects it. But not too worried about it yet. Tab out, and we want to select the bones again. Tab back in, and I already have my selection I want to move done. So selection the cursor, and tab back out. It's a process. I did the same thing before in my other video, the one where I messed up at the end. In this case, I will add extra bones after the doors. So I think I just need one extra bone. So we got this going here, and tab into that, hit A to deselect all, select that vertex, shift select this vertex, shift S, cursor deselected. Yeah, I could probably go a lot faster, but I'm trying to explain what I'm doing here. And click the bones again. Oh, I'm still in edit mode. I need to click the bones. Then go to edit mode. Extrude Z a little bit, and then shift S, selection of cursor, and I gotta tab out of this again, pick that piece again, tab into it, next point where I want my next cursor to go, so, not next cursor, I want the cursor to go to it, so there, it's the next point where I want it to go, and still in that. Now I gotta go back to bones, tab it in that. Extrude, which is also the E key. I don't have to go to the menu every time. Constraint into Y a bit, and Shift S, selection of cursor. And in this case, I'll extrude forward one more time because this rail bone I just want pointing straight forward. I don't need to line up with anything odd. It's the easiest way to get it to aim is just to point it straight forward. So extrude one more time on the Y-axis. And this whole thing will be weighted to that bone, so it doesn't matter if the bone's even centered. So it's all good in that regard. And I need to add a bone, which is Shift A. I can do it that way, so Shift A. And I have a bone now. Okay, so Control Z. And I don't think this bone's parented, it just happens to be centered where my cursor was last. So, how do I want to do this? My door here. Alright, I'm just going to tab out. And tab into my door. This door has an edge loop right around the edge here. I didn't do it this way last time, so I'm going to hold Shift Tab. Or wait, is it? Control Tab. An edge. That's what I wanted. I don't know why I got that selected, but I do want to hold down Alt, select for that edge loop. And I'm going to Shift S and drop my cursor right in the middle of that. And then tab out, pick the bones again, tab in, select where that pivot is, the bottom of the bone there, the head of it, is where the pivot is. So I'm going to, actually what I want to do is rotate this bone 90 degrees, right? Actually it shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter, I think it'll stay orientated. So I'm going back to the head of the bone. And I'm going to hit Shift S and selection the cursor like so. And then go back to the door, tab into it, and there's this loop here. My models, which is conveniently placed. It's there to control smoothing, but it's also convenient because it points where the next bone needs to go, so I'm just going to put the cursor in the middle of that. Tab out of there, go back to my bones, tab in, select the tail of that bone, hit Shift S, and selection of cursor, and it looks good, it's in alignment. And what I'm going to do is move my cursor to center, like so. While that's selected, I am going to duplicate it, but I'm also going to change my pivot point to 3D cursor. So let's hit Shift D to duplicate that bone. And did it work? I think it worked. Yeah, now it is. It's just lagging. Somehow I got snapping turned in. I don't know. But I don't need to do that. And I'm just going to right click, leave it where it is, and I'm going to scale it. X and -1 there, because the doors are symmetrical on this model. And the medium point, I'm going to turn off snapping. I must have hit the wrong hotkey somewhere. That happens, you gotta be careful. There's so many hotkeys in this program that if you hit a key inadvertently, you can screw yourself up. It's the only downside of having so many hotkeys. It's good to work fast, but if you accidentally hit something, you can end up going nuts. Okay, so I have all these bones, and I need one more bone, which is just used. It's going to be an empty bone. It works just like an empty. So I'm going to add one more bone, and I'll move it off to the side of everything else. So, darn it, that's not it, is it? Where is it? Oh, that's the root. Where's my extra empty? I think that's it. Yeah. One more empty, and it's a bone that works just like an empty does. But the way I have it set up with actions, this has to be a bone. And what this bone will do is, when I put tracking controllers on here, this will drive the tracking controllers. Because there's no way to set a tracking influence input directly to, what is it, an action. I tried doing a tracking on an action, but it doesn't work that way. So you gotta have a bone, and use the location data from the bone to drive the tracking influence using a driver, which is goofy, but hey, it works. So this will be tracking influence controller. But I guess we could probably just shorten it down a tick. I don't know. It's probably a better way of naming these things. I'll just come up with that. That's good. So we got our base pivot. We have our root, which will be a child of the box that everything goes in. And this will be arm 1. Anyway, 1. That one will be arm 2. You know, Blender tries to name all my extrusions nicely for me. Is what I needed. Arm 3. Arm 2 and arm 3. And this will just be launcher reel. Okay, and door 1 and door 2 that correspond to their doors. So we have our root, which everything else is attached to for the armature. And just to make sure it is, I'm going to go here and check to see if this bone is parented. Root doesn't need to deform anything, so I can turn off deforming that. That one does, all these for the door does, and the tick bone, the targeting controller doesn't need to deform anything. So it's just going to remain empty. And parent for that is going to be root. Parent for this also going to be the root, and the parent for the doors, root. Just doing it that way. I'm sure there's a way to do it with hotkeys and Control P, but this way works well too. Okay, so we got our armature set up for the most part, and I'll leave edit mode for the bones. Let's go to pose mode for the bones. Don't worry about posing yet, but going to pose mode to bone lets you select object mode on the other stuff. So I'm going to select the actual pivot mesh, and then the bone. Hit Control P, and we want bone relative, and it'll put all the influence weights at 100% to that bone and not move anything, which is good for our rig setup. Alright, and it makes it easy, quick. Select this, select that. Control P, bone relative. And no, you don't want to bone your relatives, except in Blender. So let's do that. Control P. Alright. That's terrible. Not in the trailer park. Alright. So, yeah. Okay. Not in mountains here in the Appalachia, so don't bone your relatives except in Blender, please. Alright. And, yeah. I'm terrible, aren't I? Terrible. Alright. Why am I selecting this? Alright. Here it goes. Alright. I think that's good. So, we should have a working rig now. Shall I test it? Alright. So, if I rotate this on the X... Oh, not X, the Y axis. That's right, you gotta go to local axis for the bone. Or is it? I don't know. Oh. Actually, if I turn on view axes for my armature, object mode, and where's it under pose mode? Here. If you turn that on, it will let you see the axes of your bones. I could probably turn on X-ray. So in this case, it is. Well, my origin is showing a y-axis, so let's just do rotate y. Well, it seems to work. I guess the root and the tail of the bone are showing different axes. I don't know why. Doesn't matter. This is a mechanical model. It's not going to be twisted around or anything if the pivots are weird. And I believe just go off what the actual manipulator is showing here. So yeah, all right. And everything seems to be attached. And I don't have the missile attached to the rail, but I should parent it. So, but I want to do it by not by the actual parent, but by the constraint. Child of. I think there's a hotkey to add a constraint, but I want to say it's Control C. You can try that. So I select this and hit that, and I'm going to try Control C. No, that's not it. What is it? Is it Shift C? That's not it. I don't know what I just did. Alright. I'm in a weird view. I don't know what I did. There aren't too many hotkeys, but you mean well, but sometimes you don't know what they do. Alright. Anyhow, I was trying to see if there was a hotkey to do it. I'm sure there is, but it's not listed. Doesn't come on my tooltip here. See, you don't get a tooltip for the hotkey in this case. But I want to make that missile a child of using constraint, and I'm going to do launcher rail. But the orientation script, because I know sometimes when you have the hotkeys, you can maintain their relative positions, just like I did with the boning. That's what I was looking for. But apparently that's not the case, so I'm just going to have to rotate this manually. RX. And I think the location offset too, so I'm going to have to reposition it again. Probably is a hotkey for it, but I don't know it. Like I said, it should come up on that tooltip. It doesn't in this case, so grab and move along the Y. And I'm going to turn on the block scan. wireframe view. And I'm going to go back to ortho. So make sure it's still inside there. And it seems like it fits. I'm going to move it down just a little bit. Yeah. Like so. There. There you go. That's good enough. Engineer needs just animation in. Re. And we want to take the bone and armature root bone. We want its parent to be the launcher box, right? So Control P. And I guess object keep transform. Where's object? Okay. So we got our launcher box, and if we select the launcher box, all our bones move with it. Good, that's what I want. Okay. So wherever I put this thing, all the bones will be with it. That's why I didn't do the bone, and that way I did it the other way around. So what do we want to do with the launcher box? We want to add a custom property to control the whole rig. That's how I did it last time, and it seemed nice. So I want to do it that way again. I'm going to add a custom property, and I'm going to call this arm launcher. Let's see. It does what it says. Here we go. That's our tooltip, and property value, I'm going to put 0.0. You got to put the 0.0 at the end of it if you want a floating value, otherwise it will snap to whole numbers. So, if you have it snap to whole numbers, it's because you put a whole number in there. You got to have the decimal there to make it work. Alright, so now I go to arm launcher, and it says does what it says. Alright. So, arm launcher, and we need to put an empty on here. Add an empty, and in this case I'm just going to use a sphere. Doesn't really matter what kind of empty, but and I'm going to call this action driver, or I think I'll call it action driver, action controller, because what we need to do is have the custom property move this up and down, and then by having this move up and down, our actions will be driven. Yeah, it sounds weird, but trust me on this. So we need to make it work with drivers, I think, or is it transforms? I'm thinking. Well, we'll just you gotta animate it. Go to and hit properties panel here, and action controller will parent to the launcher box, so let's put it there. And we'll just move it out of the way a bit. That's the Z value. Okay, so I'm not going to use the Z, I'm going to use the Y value. I think it can do a keyframe, but I'm just going to do a driver. Add single driver to the Y value. So when this thing moves, it's going to drive the actions. To make this thing move, we'll use the custom value on the box. So custom value on the box is arm launcher, so we right click on that, copy data path, and we have our data path copied. So how do we want to do this is click that again. Now we go to the animation layout. Now everybody might be able to change their layouts a little differently. I just have them on default, but I still have to adjust them because my monitor's not huge. Still got a 3/4 aspect here. I'm looking for a good widescreen. It has qualities I want at the price I want, but sticking with the CRT till then. Yeah, I'm stingy on my money. I'm not a first adapter, and I don't need the hugest flat panel, but I do want one with good color gamut and refresh rate, and that's what I'm hunting for. So, if you got an idea of a monitor with a good refresh rate for gaming and animation stuff like video work, and a good color gamut for graphics work, at a price point below $300, I'd like to know about it. Because that's what I would need. Okay, so where am I? I'm here, I guess. Here, view properties for that. Alright, I thought I did put a driver on its, oh, because I'm in the F curve editor. Duh. Here we go. Go to drivers down here. And this variable is going to be a single property of the launcher box, and it's going to be that. Okay, and I think I can do average value. It should work. So we don't even have to do scripting, we can just do it this way. Alright. So if you see what I did, I went to a singular property of the launcher box and hooked in the ARM launcher custom controller. So now this thing should move along its y-axis when I mess with that controller. So I'm going to go to default just because it's easier to get around this layout. And if I drag this, yeah, see it goes between 0 and 1 and moves that, which is great. Because the movement of that empty is going to drive all our actions. But now we want to create our actions. So we got to go to our armature, or pose mode, which is good. And everything should be zeroed out to start out with, so. And it will all be happening relative to that root bone, which we're not going to mess with, so. This should be I, and I think I'm just going to do location and rotation on all these bones. I think that'll work okay. And on this one even. That one I'm just going to do location because that's all I'm going to read from it. Not worried about this rotation. And then is I, location and rotation, so I believe all our bones are set for the first frame. This is going to be our action here. We're creating an action now. You know, it looks like we're keyframing to the regular timeline. It's okay. And these are all yellow, and our see location turns yellow and rotation turns yellow. So these are all good. So that's our first frame of our action. And we're using actions because it's going to be a set of motions that's controlled by this controller. So instead of just controlling one movement or one action, it's going to control all these bones. They're going to have actions assigned. And you just move the one property on the launcher box, and all these things are automatically going to do their stuff, which is really cool. It is. So, we got that set. We're going to do our next action, which is to open the doors. So, at frame 20, actually I'm going to do frame 21. Click here. Because I want to have the whole action take 100 frames. So it's an easy number to remember. You can do it different amounts, but you got to remember it. But in my case, the whole action is going to be 100 frames, but since it starts at 1, it's going to be 101. So everything adds at 1 because we start at 1. Pardon me. Probably need to drink more water while I'm doing this. Alright. Rotate Y. And it's going to be -90. Because I'm watching the little bottom of the screen there. Like when you're doing an action, this line changes. And I noticed it was negative. So that's going to be -90. And I'm going to keyframe that. Location rotation. The same for the other door. Rotate this one on Y. This one's going to be +90 because if you look down, we're at the bottom bar I just pointed at before, you can see the numbers. You know, you're looking at my cursor, look down at the bottom and you'll see the numbers change. So I know that's going to be 90. So I just type in 90. And we're good. And before I get out of there, keyframe, location, rotation. And I'm hitting the I key to keyframe. So you're still new at this. Might be intermediate if you're watching this kind of thing, but if you're a newbie, you could probably follow this along and get just as far. So now, when I go back to the start, it opens the doors. Okay. And at frame 41, what I want to do is retract these doors out of the way. So GZ, so they're not sticking up out of the box when the missile launcher tries to turn. And I'll just move them down like so. Maybe I'll do 2 units, that's good. And I, location rotation, the same for this one. Hit G to grab it, move it on the Y, or C is what I want. Down 2 units, hit I, location and rotation, and oopsies, you know what I did? I grabbed the door and not the bone. That would be bad. That would have been bad. That's why the handle is the center point is in a weird spot. So, back to where I was here. Gotta do it with the bone. So, gotta go T, C, down 2. Yeah. Location rotation. Because that would have broke a lot of things if I moved the door and not the bone it's attached to. You could screw things up that way. So now what will happen is doors open and get the heck out of the way. Alright, we're good there. So what we want to do after the bones get out of the way is have our missile come up. So we're going to go back to the last step. Last keyframe step where doors got out of the way. And we're going to just keyframe this to make sure it's all zeroed out at this keyframe. So, rotation. That way none of these bones will be in a weird spot when it's at this keyframe. Location rotation. Because twinning happens between keyframes. If you didn't know that already. So we want all these bones to be zeroed at this keyframe. So now we want our launcher to come up, or at least part of it. I'm going to do like a partial movement and have the whole thing come up. So I'm going to go 60. And I'm going to rotate, if I can get it. This handle's getting away sometimes, you gotta be careful about that. Rotate that bone on the X a little bit. And I'm going to, not that, almost did that with the door. Rotate that on the X a little bit. And hit that on the X a little bit. Go back. Should pop our missile up just a little bit. And once I moved, I'm going to keyframe now, so location and rotation. Should be fine now. And at 80, I want the whole thing to come up. So what we're going to do is rotate X. I could probably lock these bones just so they rotate where they're supposed to, but I'm not worried about it. As long as I don't mess with the other axes, it should be fine. So rotate this one like so, bring it up, and then grab that other bone, X, so rotate this one on the X like so, and launch a rail, rotate X like so. That brings our missile launcher all the way up, and not forgetting to keyframe these things here. So what will happen, I'm just going to turn off X-ray on this real quick. And I still have the axes turned on that. So what should happen is if I go first frame, everything's closed up. You'll see the box with the doors. Remember, this box can be anything like a vehicle, a car, window panel. I said that earlier, but just to remind you, it doesn't have to be a launcher box. It can be anything you can hide your concealed weapon in. And it automatically opens up. Doors get out of the way, and oh, I noticed something wrong with my animation. I think I'm going to get rid of the keyframes at 60. I'm just going to have it pop straight up. Because what that does is it messes up, you know what, it's not that I did that, it's... Alright. So I had a bone that I didn't keyframe, I think that's what it is. Yeah. So I don't need to get rid of all the keyframes, I just forgot to do this part on that bone. See, that's something you gotta watch out for. But we're good, and we're at that keyframe. Actually, it's not 60, it's 59, but that's close enough. It looks alright. Let's try this again. Test your animations before you save your actions. There we go. Just to see how they look. Here, and then it gets up and that pops out. Alright. And I want to go to that last keyframe. And typically when missiles start to launch, they point upwards a little bit more, so I'm going to rotate that just a little bit and re-keyframe it. There. So this pops up, that pops up, and we're good in one way, but we want this thing to point to a target all of a sudden. So right now it's just pointing out, but this launcher reel actually can aim the missile. So we'll do that too. And do that, this with this tracking, what is it? What do they call it? Oh, that's the door. Oops. This one. You gotta watch your names. Tracking influence controller bonus 4. So I go back to, it was keyframe 79. Actually, I'll just move this to 81. Give it a brief little pause before it starts tracking, that's fine. 81, I'm going to have the tracking influence controller keyframe is location, because I want it to be 0 here. Its location is important, because that's what I'm going to use the past information log. Then we'll go to frame 101. And I still have the tracking influence controller. And I'm going to move it up on, what is it, the Z-axis. And I'm going to move it up just by 1. I'm holding control to constrain it. So I'm moving it up to 1. And at that, I'm going to keyframe it. And I just need a location on there. So what you'll see is this goes up, and that comes out, and that bone goes up. Now, although that bone's not hooked to anything right now, I am going to put tracking constraints that will be driven by that bone. So let's go around here. And what I need to do now is check my actions, since I have everything in my action animated. So all this is going to be in action now. So back to our animation layout. And if I go from dope sheet to actions, action editor, and my screen isn't the best for this layout. Everybody's widescreen now, I'm still not. Okay. Armature action, that's a reasonable name. Well, I could probably name it missile launcher action. That's a good enough name too. That's a good name as well. So all this is missile launcher action now. And what I'm going to do is, I guess, save this to the block if it has no users. And then I'm going to hit X. And all that stuff goes away in the regular animation timeline. So if I go default and scrub the regular animation, nothing happens. Like, all that work and you just killed your animation. No, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's all good. Because now what we're going to do is all these bones get actions. So this bone gets an action, I believe. Actually, I probably don't even need an action on that one, because that one's just going to be controlled by tracking, but do it anyways. Bone constraints. Actions. And a target is action controller, which is at empty, right? So that's good. And when we have it move on, we had action controller empty, move on. It's at the y-axis here. Okay. So it's all going to be y location local. I believe it's local. And our target range is 0 to 1, which is the distance it moves. Remember, we had it set up to move 1 unit. The action range is going to be the number of frames per action, which starts from frame 1, ends on 101. And then we put on our action, which is missile launcher action. Same thing here, we just keep repeating the step. Y location, local space, range 0 through 1, 1 through 101. Missile launcher action. Notice when these things go good on constraints, the bones change colors. And when our action is set up correctly, its color up here will change too. So, Y location, local space. So I make sure that one's the same. Admin 0 through 1. 1 through 101. To have everything work correctly, I'm just doing it that way. So they're all in sync. So if you do them differently, they won't sync up. You'll be wondering why. And yeah, you gotta have them all in sync, so they gotta be the same. And I might mess up here, I don't know. We'll see. But last time I tried doing something with 2 empties instead of using a bone to control. The targeting influence controller was in a bone last time I did it. and that messed me up. And I was pulling my hair out, like, why is it not working? But I'm pretty sure I figured it out. Constraint actions. And these are cool kind of constraint. I mean, everybody should see the finger curl animation, which is kind of cool. Or like figure walk cycles with actions. This is another thing you use actions for, is mechanical rings. And so I'm making a good demonstration of that. Or at least I think it's good. And start one. And not forgetting the doors. That's fine. Start one. This takes a little bit to set up. Probably copy the actions for all these, but sometimes you can inadvertently copy other controllers, I think, if you're not careful. So I'm just doing it manually. Even though there's not other stuff, it's just unless you know exactly which step you're in. And I don't want to forget the targeting information controller. I need that one applied to an action as well. It is driven by an action. And local space. What? It's repetitive at this stage. Root bone doesn't really need an action, it's just there to anchor everything else in place. So, let's see if this thing works. When that empty moves, all these action controlled bones should move. And I'm moving the empty by moving the arm launcher property, so. And only one bone is moving? What the heck? Okay. That's the action controller. Alright. Oh, I didn't have you set to the action controller? That would help, huh? Let me put that back to 0. Alright. Yeah, that has to be, that's red. I forgot to set the bow. Ugh. That would help. See, I tell you, I'd make a mistake here and there. That's okay, because you'll probably do the same. If you watch me do it, you'll catch it before you do it. Alright. And, here I didn't have actions applied. So here I got the controllers. See, oh, yeah. Gotta make sure I have the action assigned. That would help too. Everything has to be there. See, that goes from red. Wasn't paying attention. Alright. Are we good? Are we golden? Let's see. Let's grab our box. Go to that custom property that drives the whole schmeal. Opens up. Missile pops out. And then the thing that controls the influence moves up. Yep. So let's look at it from here just to see it from this view. That's a pretty cool thing to have, and like you're animating something. Because this could be, like I said, a camera popping out of a ceiling, or a gun popping out of a car, or airplane, or something. Or like if you got one of those more DACA type robots where like 50 guns pop out all at once, this is the way to do it. And now we want to aim our missile launcher, so let's try that. Let's try this. Okay. So we got our pivot here, this bone here, and we want to add a constraint, and we want it to track, but we also want it to stay locked in position, so we use a locked track, and this is lock track is to have it only rotate on one axis. And our target is the missile target, remember? So wherever that thing is, it's going to point towards it. So we'll set it to missile target. And right now it's rotating on the wrong axes. And is it the Y? To lock on Y. I believe. Alright, I might have to turn on the bone axes in this case. Armature. Show the axes. I'll just hit dot to get in close. So we want it to rotate about the y-axis, and I guess we want the z-axis to point towards the missile. Okay, so let's try that one. It's under constraints. So is it the z-axis here? And our target is there. Yes, it's doing the right thing. Influence right now is set to 1, so that's okay though. Actually, let's move this so it's in the right position for it to be aiming. So yeah, it's pointing the missile at our target while rotating about that axis. So that's good. But we also want is the launcher rail to point at the target. So we click the launcher rail, and we apply the same kind of constraint. So let's do that. Locked track. And this one will go missile target again. And we want it to rotate on the axis, I guess. X. Well, let's see what's it. It's pointing on Y. And okay. So we have our launcher rail. You want it to rotate about X. Maybe this, I gotta hit the lock. There we go. So now when we move this up and down, the missile angle changes to point at it. Or the launcher rail points the missile at it. See, isn't that cool? So you got your missile, you're like, I can't get out of the way, it's still pointing at me. You know, that kind of thing. And however, we don't want this missile pointing when it gets inside the box. So if you notice, when I go this all the way down, it's inside the box, it's going to point and poke through. We don't want it. So to control those two bones, let's go back to our Z view here. I believe this one has the missile pointing at the target. We want to put a driver on this influence. So the influence is now controlled by a driver. And the influence on this one is controlled by a driver. Remember the tracking influence controller bone? That's what's going to control this. So we go to here, and while that's all selected, go back to our animations, click that, and we're in drivers. Good. So we should have this set up to average value should be okay. Change this single property, and that's fine. We just want our armature, and actually it's gonna be not single property, transform channel. Yeah, that's good. Transform channel is what we want. And our bone is tracking influence controller, and Y location, and local space is good, I think. Or is it transform space? Transform space, I think, is what we want. Okay. Where is it? Oh, it's local space. So I just noticed the whole thing isn't as set up. Is it working right? It's pointing, but it's tilting the bone weird, I think. No, it's not. It's fine. It's fine. Good. This is where I messed up the last time and I had stuff break down on me. Do the same thing with this one. Also influence. Change that to average value. You don't need to do a script in this case. It's from channel, Armature, tracking information controller. I believe it's the Y location, local space. Why is this showing red? I don't know. It's good. Alright. Yay! Alright, I think I got it working. So, let's see, go back to default view. Here's our target. So wherever this target is, this missile is going to point right at it. Now watch. Click the box, go to the arm launcher properties, and it folds in. Perfect. This is exactly what I wanted last time. So now we got our missile launcher, and just to arm the launcher, we drag this value up, and then the doors go out and away, and our missile points at the target. That's exactly what we wanted. Sometimes this doesn't always update right. They'll see it gets stuck. I don't know what causes that, but if I move anything, it fixes. There's probably some way to force Blender to update, but I don't know it offhand. But that's another annoying thing that happens in animation. It sticks on updating. But I got my tutorial corrected, so if you were watching the old one where I screwed up and went nuts at the end, this one works great. So this is the way to do it. And then the doors go up and then a missile. So yeah, like you had your robot with like 50 guns and missiles popping out of his back, and you wanted him to point at something, it'd be like that. Or if you had a ceiling panel with the camera that comes out. There's all kinds of cool things you can do with a rig like this. And you don't have to do it exactly like this, it's just an idea, you know. It's like, you can have it, you know, you can't get away. You think you're sneaky coming from behind, you know, think you're sneaky back here. Well, so you're trying to sneak up on this box from behind. Well, no, the missile goes right at you. As fast as you can turn that value all the way up, right? Here. So, we're good. And I'm going to save this. For all that work, I don't want to lose it. And now you can make your own missile launchers, your own hidden concealed weapons, cameras, devices of that nature. Have fun, and good luck, Blender Animating. Later. Why aren't you coming up? Game Studio, you froze on me.